This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit espolontequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025 Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
Culture evolves at the speed of light, just like your financial needs. When it comes to your money, Credit Karma keeps you in the know and ahead of the game. You can count on Credit Karma to keep up with your financial needs as they evolve. We'll help you monitor your progress and give personalized recommendations so you can make strides towards your goals and find your way to money. Make sure you're on the right track, no matter where you are on your financial journey. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on.
To me, I just hate our players ever standing around. So we want to try to roll the guys in fast, let the first group get a rep, let the second group get a rep, let the third group get a rep, the fourth group get a rep, just so their minds are constantly working and they're not just over there bored. So those are the 2 or 3 kind of ways that we kind of do it. And I think they've been effective for us.
Student of the game comes from the mindset that decrees we will be genuinely curious, constantly evolving, obsessed with the process of learning and growing. I've often operated with the mindset that the game of football is constantly evolving, and we will either grow with it or become extinct. It is our expectation that we separate from those we have passed and to catch those that are still operating above us. This podcast offers a source for those that believe in constant evolution of their knowledge, individual craft, and overall intrigue in the game of football. Each of you can find one tool that can help improve your off-season process as you continuously become students of the game.
With PayPal, I can pay now or pay in 4. No interest and no fees. Now feast your ears on this prime-cut musical meat. You can pay your own way. Don't just pay, PayPal.
Subject to approval, eligibility varies. Learn more at paypal.com/pay-in-4.
Coaches, welcome into another episode, Student of the Game podcast, brought to you by the Coaching Coordinator Network. Definitely, as always, want to thank Keith Grabowski for the opportunity to do this. Today, extra special guest. He happens to be my current boss. He's someone that I've gotten to know along the way. I'm really excited to talk to in this capacity. Obviously, we get a unique opportunity to talk and work with each other every day, but I think it'll be interesting for more people out there to kind of hear his process. And a lot of the reasons, honestly, why I wanted to work with him. That special guest is none other than the head football coach of the Georgetown College Tigers, John Perin. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Caleb. Exciting. I don't know how many coaching coordinator podcasts they've had the guest be someone you're working with, but excited to do it with you today, man.
Yeah, and I always like to start, obviously the dynamic is unique, but I always like to start like why I choose certain guests. And we'll probably cover some of it, but you and I met on the recruiting trail 4 or 5 years ago. And I can remember the high school we were at, standing right outside New Richmond's middle school by their football field. And I don't know, it was about 10 minutes into that conversation. It's like, man, this is a lot of similarities. And I think that we had just a really genuine conversation. And really, it was probably just touch and go connection from there. And it happened to be an opportunity where both of us could take some steps to be able to work with each other. And it kind of worked out. But not only on top of that, what I followed is you were the Division III Coordinator of the Year, Birmingham Southern, when you called the defense there. Your 3 defenses at Georgetown College have all been top 10 units. I got to see it firsthand in the spring of what you're able to do, the type of culture you've personally built on that side of the football. So not only did I think we connect, but you're a damn good football coach, and just excited to actually be able to work with you and do this type of talk on this format.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I want to hit on, I think you talked about us running into each other at the recruiting trail. That's where I've really met, some unique people. And I think as young coaches that maybe listen to this, don't take that for granted. You never know when you have an opportunity to build a strong relationship with that person or how they're going to be able to help you in your career, whether it's schematically, jobs in the future. But that's one thing that I really enjoyed doing as in spring recruiting, especially, is you have a little bit more time the way the high schools in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area where I recruited and you recruited was you kind of travel together throughout the city and go to these different spots. You're not just running into a guy for one stop at one school. You're with these guys all day. So you have a chance to really kind of get to know them, pick their brain, watch them operate. I think throughout the recruiting process too is important. But I remember a long, long time ago, I've been coaching going on my 17th year. It had to be my first or second year in the business, met one of my best friends in the business now, kind of the same way, and a guy who's helped me along my career. So definitely got to take advantage of those opportunities. And again, I think as much as you may gain from the conversation, I gained from it and came away very impressed with you conversations. And then, when I had the opportunity to hire an offensive coordinator, you were one of the first guys that came to mind because of really that relationship we had started to build out there on the recruiting trail. So very, very important, I think, for anybody, but don't just go stand in the corner and recruit on your own. You got to make sure that you're connecting with other people because I think it's a pretty tight-knit community, the coaching community, and we got to take care of each other. I always joke around a little bit about no one knows our lives other than the other people in our industry. My family still questions some of the things that I'm doing and you're working on Sunday or things like that. And even your good friends, and we all got good friends outside of this industry, but they don't know the life you live. So it's an opportunity to connect with people that are living the same life you have and talk through family dynamics and both raising young girls. So those different things. And I think you can gain a lot from those experiences as well.
That's a great piece of advice. And I think that means a lot. I think I got asked a week ago to go to some concert. And I'm like, on a Friday night in September, I'm like, we're going to be in Miami preparing for one of the top 5 teams in the country. I think I'll have to pass on that. So nobody gets it like we quite get it. So no, I think that's a great piece of advice. And speaking of that, just hearing the number, it's hard. It makes sense with the wisdom that you're able to bring on a daily basis with 17 years. Walk some of the listeners here through your journey in coaching, because I do think it's quite interesting. And I've got to hear it in a couple different settings, but it's always interesting hearing the different steps you took along the way to get here.
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to get into coaching. I have great parents, but the people that were closest to me when I was coming up in high school and, really my young part of my life was I really had strong relationship with teachers and coaches. And I always told myself I want to get into coaching because I wanted to make money, right? And then I got into small college coaching and probably should have been a teacher, would have made more money. But so those relationships really early on were what kind of pushed me towards that profession. I went to college and played at Center College. Actually, was a walk-on for a year at Miami, Ohio. And that's part of my process too, I think, because I learned a lot there. I tell people I was a terrible recruit, 5'8" white corner, and thought I was Division I. But I got a chance to go play at Miami. I was a walk-on. Ben Roethlisberger was our quarterback. We went 13-1. It was a great experience for me to have, but also it really showed, hey, this is something you want to do. You need to go play. And I transferred to Center College. But even the coaches I was around at Miami, where the staff was amazing. Terry Hepner was our head coach who passed. But I learned so much about his passion for the game and the way he defended his players and had his players' backs. Pat Narduzzi was our defensive coordinator. He's gone on to have a ton of success. Shane Montgomery was there. We had a ton of great coaches. So learned a ton, but went and played for Andy Fry at center and had a great experience there. And again, I think your career is different. You have different ideas. And at that point, when I was graduating, I wanted to get out into the real world and make money and had this grand plan for going into the real estate market. I was in commercial real estate, had a great job. It was 2008 and the world was coming to an end. The stock market was crashing. And again, everything that's happened in my career, I believe happened on purpose. But that happened on purpose for me because it really pushed me towards getting into coaching. And I was challenged by one of my bosses at the company I was with. Hey, do you want to go make no money, move your family around, coach small college football? And it was the most convicted I've ever been in the early part of my life, the work life. And I was so convicted. I said, yes, without a doubt. And had so much confidence in my voice. So I really never looked back at that point. I had an opportunity to get on at Muskingum, was there for a year, got to go back to Center College and work for Andy Fry. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country across all levels. Very few people have a stadium named after them while they're still coaching. And again, as great of on the field coach as he is, he makes even a bigger impact with the young guys off the field. And I've taken a lot of my philosophy and just the way we operate from him. I had a chance to be a young coordinator at Capital, thought I knew all the answers. Actually, I think we competed against Coach Grabowski when he was at BW and they beat us.
That's awesome.
But we got humbled really quickly. We took over a poor program and realized I didn't have all the answers. But at that point, I really knew that I wanted to start searching for ways to do things better. And then again, I had an opportunity to go be a GA at Eastern Michigan, work for Chris Creighton. Again, I think he's one of the great motivators and culture guys in this football. He's extremely smart in the X's and O's, but I got my taste of Division I, if you will. Was there for a year. Again, we had a great staff. Caleb Corrill was our offensive coordinator. Ryan Grubb was our offensive line coach. at that point, really didn't know who those guys were. Now both of them are at Alabama and the success that he's had. But again, I think I was still able to observe those guys, and I've taken a little bit from everywhere I've been. Got to be a special teams coordinator at Morehead State. Again, I think that was an important part of my journey because the special teams I took extremely serious, and not that everyone doesn't, but it was like my time to be, again, a coordinator. And what I loved about it is I had the reach of the entire team, right? You got your head coach, your strength coach, touch every player in the team. And the special teams coordinator has an opportunity to really coach and work with every player on the team. So I really took pride in that and learned a bunch about that. And then I have an opportunity to go down to Birmingham Southern with Tony Joe White, a good friend of mine, and get back into coordinating. And there at Birmingham Southern is where I became, to me, a defensive coordinator. And when I got this job, I thanked him for allowing me to fail. And I think you have to learn through failure. And again, sometimes at the higher levels, you're not able to do that because there's you have to win at all costs. But we were taking over a 1-9 football program. I had a structure. I had an idea of what we wanted to do and had been at, a couple different places and had philosophies. But I was really able to hone it there, right? And really, again, there wasn't pressure for us to win right away. And we knew it was going to be a process to take a 1-9 program into a national qualifier and those things. So, and he was patient with me, but he also helped me. He knew I wanted to be a head coach one day. So he was very involved or allowed me to be very involved in a lot of his head coach decisions. He was in my office every single day, or I was in his office, and we'd go through a lot of those conversations. And I learned a ton from him. Again, just being a head coach, because I was always able to ask a question. I was always able to give my opinion without negative feedback or anything like that. Like, he valued it, but also we were able to have a ton of conversations about that. COVID hit during that time period. And again, as bad as COVID was for the country and those types of things, to me, it was great for my career. And why I say that is because in Division III, moved everything to the winter, spring, whatever you call it. But the access to football became, especially for small college guys that don't have the ability to go visit all these different schools, the access across the internet and social media and Zooms and podcasts like this was amazing. You really got to study your defense. And I knew it was the 2019 season. We had a pretty good year. I think we went 7-3. We beat a top 10 opponent at that time. But I knew we needed to make adjustments to get to the next level. I think we were a good defense. We weren't great. Even the 2020 season, it was 4 games. We went 2-2. And I learned a ton during those 4 games, right? About you're starting to figure things out. Okay, here how offenses are adapting to how you getting better at things, right? And hey, this is what it's going to look like into that 2021 season. So we were able to really have a good 21 season. We lost 1 game to Trinity University out in Texas, and really it was a conference championship game. And I think the score was 28-27, something like that. We went for 2 at the end, and I don't doubt that decision. I told the head coach, yeah, let's do it. But they were a great team and beat us that day, but we were able to still make the playoffs and ran to Mayor Hardin-Baylor that year, and they went national championships. Again, I think that time period, and again, I tell our staff sometimes, we got young coaches on our staff, want to be coordinators. You don't want to go to a place that's just a perennial loser, but maybe it's a program that has a chance to win, and you can go there and really cut your teeth and figure out like your philosophy and things. I try to do a good job of this as a coordinator and head coach now, is like give them all the history of where the defense was and how it's gotten to this point. Because to me, it's easy because I've gone through that process. But when you're kind of onboarding new coaches or talking to new coaches on your staff, you can just tell them, hey, this is the way we do it. Or you can kind of give them the evolution of the coverage or the pressure or the technique that you've changed. And maybe they give you a suggestion on, hey, can we do it this way? That's a good question. We used to do it that way. Here's why we changed over the years. But that time there really helped me in that area. And then I got a call from Chris Oliver here to come be the defensive coordinator. Selfishly, it was closer to my family. I'm from Cincinnati. My wife's from Georgetown, Kentucky. So it was kind of right in the middle. And that was one of the reasons. And then I wanted to go work for a national championship head coach, be around that. I think, again, you're the average of the people that you're around. I mean, I wanted to see his process and how he was able to have so much success. But then also the Georgetown name. I mean, I played at center. Georgetown's right down the road. When I was in college, they were just coming off a ton of success in winning national championships. So I knew the brand and I felt like I could have a lot of success here. Never took this job expecting to ever be the head coach. And I would tell people that if you want to be a head coach, it's going to happen when you least expect it, because I wasn't really ready. I mean, I was ready to be it, but like never thought it would happen at this time. So that's a little bit of who I am, what I'm about. I mean, again, it's unique. And what I would tell everybody is there's always these, you wish you got that job, or you wish you got an opportunity to interview for that job, or why did they hire me here? And we've all had those questions, but I thank God for the jobs he didn't give me. Like I'm right where I need to be and was at the right place at the right time with the right people. And again, I didn't get this job. I mean, the staff, our players, everybody helped me get into this position. And I have a really supportive wife and young daughter that we're also part of it. So unique, yeah. But I think if you got to continually learn, surround yourself with good people, be around winners, be around program builders, be around people who know what good culture looks like and how to build culture. And then you got to continue to take as much from them as you can. And don't be afraid to ask questions. I think I've talked to our staff about that. Like, hey, you got a question to ask me, man. Because again, we all have ambition of doing, we got guys on our staff that want to be coordinators. We got guys on our staff that want to be head coaches. There's no wall with me. It's come in and ask, and let's have a conversation on how we got here and why we do the things we do, because I enjoy that part of teaching as well. So that's who I am, man.
I love it, man. Just hearing the names again of who you worked with. And obviously, like, I got to shout out Coach Fry at center. I mean, we got to scrimmage them every year at Mount St. Joe, and what a job he's done there. And knowing you came from that program and along the way, but it's like you said, it's the people. Certainly the place matters, but the people you work with, I think, is like incredibly important. And today, you and I and the rest of the staff, we're out there, is 92 degrees and we're, cleaning up the field, joking about small college football. But in my head, it's like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is just who you're surrounded with. And I know I've told you a bunch, Georgetown College, it sells itself, right? It's a national perennial opportunity. The region we grew up in, it's got as strong of a brand as any small college. But I think just naturally you put on display, and I haven't even got to be around you through that last piece of your development, but I think you give off that same aura where you certainly are accessible. I think that you appropriately challenge the staff and us on a daily basis, which is what I kind of pride myself on. We both know the expectations here, but when you were talking about when you worked for Tony Joe, like the opportunity to be yourself and develop, and it wasn't that it was just, hey, just go do all this crazy stuff. You got to find yourself. And I think that balance is important, being a coordinator, of being in opportunities where you have that creative flexibility and where you don't. And I think it's just stark contrast to the type of product. So obviously your first head coaching gig, I hope on the next podcast you get to do in 5 years down the road. Like, this phase in both of our lives is as good as where we envision in our head. But it is interesting to hear of all those guys you've worked with and for me to reflect on what it's like being around you on a daily basis. One of the things I noticed right away, and the reason Keith and I came up with the idea of student of the game, is just that constant urge to learn. And I mean, it wasn't, but 2 days in the office and I just felt that same aura from you. And I think as soon as we jumped into spring ball, I reflected on it knowing we had done something on the offensive side. And I know I was talking to linebackers coach. He's like, yeah, we got to change the way that we do this because of something that we're seeing in spring. And I knew right then, it reminded me of Rick Thompson at Mount St. Joe, who was one of the best evolution guys that I'd been around at that point in my career. Just the way that you were constantly tinkering for the best product. And talk to us about just along the way, where did that part of you come from and how have you kind of tried to apply that? You kind of hit on some of those there, but I noticed that about you right away. And to me, that's the essence of being a student of the game. Talk to us just a little bit about your career of how you accumulated that desire and some of those just knowledge points that you utilize on a daily basis.
Yeah. So I think part of it is I'm competitive. And I say this to our staff, I say to our players, I say it in recruiting. Anytime there's a number associated with our football program, the number has to be number one, right? And it could be any statistic. They don't do recruiting rankings at our level, but we want to have the number one recruiting class. We want to have the number one offense, number one defense, number one special teams. And when you look at a special team or defensively over the years, there were times when we had good elements of our defense, but I think what I've always been, and I've had a couple mentors in my career, but I think that I never wanted to, I get a pit in my stomach thinking about not being prepared, not preparing our players in a game for any situation, right? And so I always want to go out of my way to figure out every single possibility. I want to study as much of the game as I possibly can. And again, I'll go back a little bit. So I think this may be some of your questions, but how did our defense get to where it is, right? And the evolution of our defense, right? So I think that you got to look at who's doing it the best, right? And when I was coming up, Pat Narduzzi, and I had not a great relationship with him, but I knew of him because of my time at Miami. And he was having these stellar defenses at Michigan State. And then I remember Ohio State took their defense essentially and won a national championship. So this press quarters thing was happening. And I tried to dive into it as much as I can, right? And that was back when film was harder to come by, but you dug, you asked people, you begged people to get you something. You look up YouTube highlights or whatever. But then you start to work through it and you start to go through the process of, hey, how would this look? How does this work with our terminology? Right. So there was that kind of evolution. We got in this quarters world and I had a quarters background in center and really even my first jobs. And then again, you kind of look at again across the country. And again, I think there hadn't been a lot of access to smaller colleges and I didn't have a ton of connections in this business. My dad's not in this business. Again, a lot of the coaches that coached at center stayed at center forever. My network wasn't very big. So you look big picture. Okay, who else is playing defense really well? Okay, it was this guy, Nick Saban, down the road when I'm in Birmingham and what they're doing so well. Like, again, what are they doing so well? Actually, let me go back. When I was at Morehead State, this is kind of a cool story. It's at Morehead State. We go up to a Glazier clinic and I see this talk on middle of field closed coverage. And that's kind of when my mind was kind of changing to when, hey, I think we got to do a little bit more middle field closed stuff, some cover three, get back to that world. And there's this guy named Brandon Staley doing the talk. And at the time, Brandon Staley was the defense coordinator, John Carroll, right? And again, he went in there and if anyone's seen him give a clinic, it was outstanding. And you came away from it like that guy is really good. He knows what he's talking about. I got to find a way to get more information from him. And he was a resource for me when I was young. And so I kind of really learned the pattern match cover three stuff from him. And then I kind of go down to Birmingham and I'm around it even more, just being near Alabama, near Georgia. But you start to study that stuff. And again, it just became, these are the best defenses in the country. What are they doing? How does it look like what we're doing? And again, you try to, you got to have great players. Don't get me wrong. But you're trying to strive to be the best. Okay, let me study the best. And to me, that was it's always been a passion of mine to study the game, right? I'm not this guy that just wants to go out and coach. Like, I want to know the why, right? Like, I want to know everything why did you guys start there to get here? Like, I want to know those things. So you find an old playbook or whatever, and you go through it and you spend all night on it and you start drawing things up. But then you kind of want to ask questions and you try to find someone on the staff or some GA or QC and I guess my passion behind that just was because I wanted to be able to teach it effectively, right? I think you look at a playbook sheet, okay, that's cool, but like I want to now teach this effectively. So I've had some people that have helped me along my way. And again, it's just always been you got to continually get better, right? Teams are going to catch up on you. They're going to try to find ways to expose the things you're doing. You got to figure out what those issues are before they happen. And so I've always been excited about studying the game. Like you get here in the early part of February, like that to me is a really fun time because you can dive into other opponents, right, at our level. Right. And this is something I did at Birmingham Southern. And if the guys see it, we would play Berry College every year. And they had one of the top defenses in the country. I studied them during COVID. We had all their games. I watched it all. I saw what they were doing really well because I had a lot of respect for them and what they were doing. So again, you study, we had a chance to play some really good teams in the playoffs in my 3 years here. Okay, let's look at some of their stuff they're doing. Okay, and then, hey, let's look at who are some of the top defenses across Division I football. How do I look at their film? And does it look like what we're doing? Yeah, it does. Okay, let's take some of those elements. And that to me is always fun. I enjoy that process. I'm a guy when I come into the office, I don't just want to sit at my desk. I want to watch film. I want to improve some head coaching things I got to do to get done. But at the most, I'd rather just be sitting talking ball, working on football. So long answer there, but it's always been a passion about, even if it's a team who's playing good defense, who's not doing what we're doing, I want to have an idea, right? That what's happening out there. Like the Iowa State stuff was happening a couple of years ago with the 3-eye safety stuff. I want to study that a little bit. Maybe we don't ever get into it, but I want to know enough to what's happening because I think you have to keep up with the trends in college football and they're going to continue to change and you've got to continue to study. Hey, maybe you'll find something that fits you and maybe you'll find something that doesn't fit you, but at least you now have gone down that process and maybe it's helped you tighten your stuff up a little bit, or maybe it opens your eyes and maybe we got to shift some things a little bit. So that's always been my passion. I'm a football junkie like you. Like I'm thinking about it all the time. I try to put my phone down and spend some time with my family when I'm home. But when I'm here, I'm going to study football and try to make our program and defense better.
I get to see it on a daily basis. And obviously, like it kind of sparked me some of the different unique film studies that you and I would do when we had an hour here, an hour there, not doing the head coach duties or us working with our separate sides of the ball, but looking at some really high level NAI offenses and like, hey, this is what they're doing. And then I remember us bouncing to, hey, let's watch this Ohio State tape. We're watching Georgia on defense, but they're playing Ole Miss and just some of those cross platforms that, like you said, I think anytime that when I first started being a coordinator, we had 2 years where we were scoring the football really well. And it was probably a false sense of security. And the third year, we kind of just rolled out, hey, we're just going to do the same thing. It's what we do. And we kind of got it shoved back to us a little bit. And that was one of the first instances where I was like, it is truly a yearly and almost like 2 or 3 different times a year where there has to be evolution or you will get caught. And it doesn't take very long. And I think that that's the thing I love about football, and then getting to be around you and you being on the other side of the ball, it motivated me to be like, there are even more subtle details to study. And then honestly, some of the best work, I always complimented Coach Thompson at Mount St. Joe, but some of the best work was those 15 practices in the spring where it was like, man, I mean, I think I've said it on every episode this season. It's like, yeah, we're stress testing this stuff against a pretty good defense.
Yeah, you made a good point. I think when you're studying defense, you're also studying offense, right? You're studying offense, you're also studying defense, right? Because I think part of the evolution is, how is the offense changing, right? You made a great point there. And you and I talked about this the other day. Some of your evolution on either side of the football is occurring because of what's happening on the other side of the football. And if they're going to do this, then we got to figure out how to defend it. Right. And so as much as sometimes you're watching a specific defense, you're also watching how these top high level offenses are attacking these high level defenses, because you want to know, how are they stressing your structure with maybe some things that might show up down the road, or how are they handling these different motions or shifts or run plays or pass plays. So yeah, I think you made a great point. As much as you study your side of the football, there's also the element of other side you need to be studying as well to see how they're evolving as well.
No doubt. I mean, and I think this is going to be another experience that along down the road, when you reflect back, I've learned the most from defensive coaches, where we have that relationship where we're just constantly talking about the process. And I've already learned it in 4 or 5 months more about football, which is always amazes me. You can never learn enough about this game. It just is.
I tell you,
it's crazy.
The best thing, when I was DB coach and special teams coordinator at Morehead State, he and our quarterback coach were in each other's office daily. And to me, that's when I started studying offense in Morehead. And we had a guy named Zach Lewis. He's an excellent coach. And he would ask me, hey, what is the safety doing here? What's this? I'd ask him what the quarterback's, hey, what's his read? Those types of things. So you're starting to figure out, I think that's where I started to figure out, hey, you need to study offense just as much as you need to study defense, and figure out what's the quarterback reading? Hey, all this RPO stuff, what's he reading, right? Why are they throwing the ball there? Why are they handing the football off? Find out that information. But if there's a young coach watching, you're on the defensive side of the football, you need to be you're a D-line coach. I'd be in your O-line coach's room every day. You're a DB guy, I'd be with the quarterback coach every single day, and just bouncing ideas back and forth and asking them how they're coaching things. Right. And we did something here early in the spring where we kind of almost installed together and showed, hey, this is what the coverage looks like. Hey, this is what our offense looks like. Because again, not that we're scheming each other, but to be great on defense, no offense. To be great on offense, no defense. Right. I think that's, sometimes we take it for granted that, we're just going to be so good on defense. Man, learn the offense too, because that really made a great point there too. That part of my career at Morehead really helped me understand the quarterback play in my time with Zach. And we were in each other's office every single day, much like you and I are now.
It's funny how that works.
Growing your e-commerce business comes with plenty of hurdles, but shipping shouldn't be one of them. Well, here's some good news. Powerful e-commerce shipping software called ShipExcel from Pitney Bowes. With ShipExcel, you can generate discounted shipping labels for both online and offline orders. That saves time and money, with everything right at your fingertips. Start your free trial of ShipExcel from Pitney Bowes today.
Speaking of that, something else that you and I, kind of the process we're in right now is building installs and doing almost a second reflection from what we've done in spring. When you're looking at, a concept that you already have installed, implemented, and it's effective already, what are you guys doing, you in particular, what are you doing to continue to enhance it? I know we kind of hit on some of those, but I'm watching your guys' process as much as we're reflecting on ours. And I always think that's interesting. You have your base thing that is good, but how do you continuously push it forward?
Yeah, I think when you go back and look at any concept, right? If you look at the length of the season, you watch that cut up, there's probably good, bad, and ugly in it, right? And hopefully more good, or else you want to get rid of it. But I think you want to analyze, okay, what happened when it didn't look good? Was it structure or was it a personnel issue? Right. And that's an Andy Fry thing. Anytime we would lose a game, he wanted to know mental errors, right? Because or was it a structural issue with the coverage, right? Or your offense or defense? When I was at Morehead State, we played James Madison, right? They were number one team in the country. Okay. So did you have a bunch of mental errors? No. Okay. So they had better personnel, right? So again, you want to look at that. Is that you're looking at part of your process? But also then, okay, we're not having a bunch of mental errors, but how are the teams having success against this concept? And what's happening? How are we coaching it? Always go back. We got a conversation about a coverage and there's an issue with our linebackers coach. How are you coaching that? Right? Because I want to hear him say it to me. And again, maybe it's fine and maybe there's a better way to say it, but those are the things we're looking at. I think that, teams are always going to try to find ways to expose things in every concept. And you've got to develop a plan to protect against those things. We have been able to see different offenses throughout our run here. And we've seen, I think, some high level coaching. And again, when you get that, okay, you got to evaluate, what was it? Was it a personnel error? Was it a mental error? Right? One of those three, or a structure error, right? Like it's really one of those three things, right? Personnel, we got to go recruit better, right? And then if it's structure, we got to take a close look at it, right? And then if it's a mental, hey, we got to figure out how to coach it better, right? How to rep it better in a game or in practice, rep it better in Indy, all those types of things. So that's kind of our process. And again, there's sometimes you're looking at it and guys are going to make great plays, right? Like, I think you have to look at the full picture, right, of everything, because I think sometimes you go off numbers and numbers can be deceiving to a certain extent. Hey, this was a great call for us, but was it? Like this was the best team in the country that we played and they exposed us here. Okay, so we got to look at what they were doing and have a plan for the issues they brought up. Okay, and that's kind of our process. And then we really just kind of comb through everything, tighten everything down. We're going to go, like what we've done here a little bit this week is we're looking at our install, right? Hey, this is our day one. We go up, we pull up our playbook, picture, and we look at what's written down. Is it clean? Does it make sense? Is there anything confusing in there? And is there a way we can say something better? And is there an adjustment we want to add to the page that we're seeing a lot more, either from our offense or offenses that we're going to face? Because those are the things you're going to be teaching to your players. So that's kind of our process, and it's tedious, and yeah, you may be changing slight lines and different things, but to me, that's an important part of your process. It also helps you get ready leading up to fall camp. I think there's so much administrative stuff you got to do leading up to camp. You also want to have a sharp football mind. And I think I always tell people, and our staff, these things, like, I feel like going into spring practice, my mind is as sharp as it's ever been because all you've been talking about all off season is football. And then, you got summer, you go on vacation, you come back in the offense, there's administrative issues. You better wrap your mind back around football because your players are going to be here and you need to have a sharp mind. There's times when we're going to do administrative stuff during the day, but we're also going to try to find time to, lock our minds back in on the things that are important to us, right? And I know, like, one thing I do too is I try to keep a notebook, right? And something I know you do as well, but go back and look at, previous years of issues that came up. I'll just flip through it. Each notebook's a year, right? So I've just, started my new notebook, right? So I'm starting to take notes in it, but I'll go back and look at, hey, what happened in the spring? Go through those issues that maybe were created by our offense. Hey, let's bring those back up. These are the solutions we came up with then. We've had time to reflect and think about them. Is that still what we want to do? Let's tighten that down. Go back to maybe a year before, take a look at maybe some things that came up. So that's kind of our process. And there's some things too when you're going through, for us, spring cut-ups or talking about now your fall install is, hey, we installed this in the spring. Oh man, it's cool. It looks nice. I just don't know if it fits us. It didn't give us what we wanted to, and it's expensive to install it. Let's just move on from it. And we did that the other day. So, that's kind of, for us, our philosophy probably is, hey, be really experimental in the spring, try new ideas, add some stuff that maybe you've studied in the off season because you want to get it on film. And like you said, you want to stress test it, right? Against our offense, I think we're going to stress test everything. So you want to stress test it. You want to see how it's going to, what it's going to look like in different situations. And then when you kind of have time to reflect on it, you want to come back and like, hey, is this something that we're going to use, right? Because again, to me, what frustrates me is when I go back and I look at like previous installs from previous years and I look at maybe how big they were or how many calls we went in. And then I look at how many times we called it during a season. It's like one time. Man, how many reps did we put into that when we could have been repping something else? That's what we're trying to really focus in on right now. Make sure that install is good about what we're going to use. Spend time on the things you're going to call the most. you still have to have the specialized defenses around the red zone and stuff like that, and different third down things that maybe don't get called as much, but you still want to find ways to keep things simple and let your guys go play. So that's kind of our process and how we do things.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I mean, it was just the other day where, you guys were working through that install, and I asked, our linebackers coach, like, hey, just how far did you guys get? And he's like, well, we spent that time on install 1. And what that tells me is the level of detail that's going into the core value of what we're going to do operationally is extremely finite. And like you said, your fine-tooth comb going through it. And to coaches out there, like, I really do, like, I think there's just levels to it where I've literally done where you just roll it back out and, hey, this was awesome for us. And people, wise up to it, especially competition that you're seeing yearly. And obviously, like, it's not a big picture change, but those subtle nuances are what you and I were in the office, I think it was last night. And it's like, that's what evolution is you're creating solutions within what's already existing to handle, like you said, whether it's trends or new lines of attack that you're seeing. Like, that's what evolution is. And that to me is why I just believe that evolution is endless, right? And to the point of, you guys spent that entire block of meeting of just making sure install 1 was tight, right? And that's going to pay dividends. Obviously, in camp, once you get to it, you've installed it because, in theory, I think of install 1, like, we're going to work on install 1 every single day of the season in some regard, right? So that just to me is impressive. And that's just the separation of levels of working through the multiple different facets that go into it and what I get to see. And speaking of that, it's always interesting to me, like, when you think of installation process, obviously not the what, but how do you, from a defensive mentality, look at, a camp installation? Like, how many days do you classify it as? Like, how do you kind of go about how you're implementing it and your mentality towards what, when, and why it's going in at that certain point?
Yeah, so I think that you have to have, and not everybody's going to have this, but I think you have to have a big picture of what camp looks like, right? If you're not going to work red zone day 1, then don't install your red zone stuff, right? But there has to be, and you and I talk about this a lot, like, we got to have collaboration between our offensive and defensive staffs about what's going in. Again, we're going to tell you what's going in. You're going to tell us what's going in. It's not to defend each other, but it's to help teach our guys what's happening on either side of the football. But I think there has to be a big picture of, here's our program philosophy on what's happening early in camp. When are we going to be in more specialized situations, right? And then, when are we going to get to a scrimmage? When are we going to do, some end of game, end of half, those types of things. Like, because again, I think that when you don't have a big picture plan like that, puts both sides in kind of flux on, hey, when do we want to put this in? We don't really know when we're doing, red zone. Okay, well, let's just hold on to it. And again, what I would tell people that if you don't know, and sometimes you don't, like, we would used to create here's our red zone install day, right? And we would just have it on deck ready whenever we were going to do that. Or here's our, our third down specialty stuff, right? Because maybe we don't rep third down early and now we're doing it, right? So again, what I would say is you want to have, if you can, from your head coach or even coordinators can collaborate on coming together on, hey, when do you think you want to get into this stuff? And I would say that's big picture. For me, though, like, looking at defensively is we want to go, like you said, day 1 for us, man, like, you better spend time on that. Your guys better know it. Your coaches better be able to know how to teach it really, really high level. So we spend a significant amount of time on that. But again, really the early stuff should be the core of who you are, right? Like, we've started to develop, a little bit of some third down stuff earlier in just so we can get it on film. I always hated when you just had a third down day because you rush to kind of make all these calls on one day. And kind of, how we do practice with our blitz periods, like, hey, now it's an opportunity to get these calls on video, right? And it's in our situation, a low pressure situation. Okay, we saw how the offense reacted. This is how we reacted. Again, there's video to coach off of it. Because when I go back to anything, for me, I have to call something in a game. I have to be comfortable with it, right? Just like probably an offensive coach, you have to have called it multiple times. My frustration was, hey, we've got these third down calls, and then we go back, to our fall camp cutups, and we can't find our ones ever repping the play. It's our 2s, it's our 3s. and even those reps are limited, right? So I would say if this is going to be something that's core of what you're going to do, you got to find ways to implement it early and rep it early. And it can be a third down thing, right? We start to implement some of our third down stuff earlier in the camp because, hey, this is something that's going to be core on our third down. We want to get it in early and get it on film, and just so we don't have that one day. But that's what I would tell anybody is, in our philosophy is look at who you are, right? Like the 80% of who you are, right, really has to be in those first 3 days. Okay. And to me, because that's who you're going to be. And yeah, you're going to rep it the rest of camp, but you want to get that in your guys' minds as fast as possible. And I bet, if you brought our guys in here, they would know the first couple calls that are going to go in because they know that's the core of who we are. So that's kind of our process. I would say, we're probably like 6 to 7 core days, like of getting stuff in. Like we'll probably install stuff throughout camp, and a half situation thing, some specialty things. But I'd say we're around that 6 to 7 install mark. And then again, you're going to kind of go back to though and keep jumping around. But I wanted to bring this up. A couple of years ago, I saw Ryan Day talk about buckets. Offensively, there's buckets of offensive concepts. And to me, that had a major impact on me, right? Because I was like, here's a high-level offensive coordinator, head coach now. I think he's one of the best play callers in college football. And here's how his mind's thinking. Like, what's our defense look like, right? And I think you want your main buckets in early. You don't have to put everything from that bucket in day one, but the core concept of that bucket goes in early, right? So when you want to come back to something later in camp, you're not teaching them a completely new concept, right? It may just be a different blitz path or a different stunt, but the coverage concept that they've already learned. So that's kind of our philosophy is like, hey, we want to look at, how many buckets do we have, right? Of calls, right? Like how many 3Ds, how many quarters, how many sim pressures, right? We got, 1 high sim pressures. We got 2 high sim pressures. We got Tampa sim pressures. Like, okay, how many buckets do you have total? Okay. What are the ones that you work on the most or you call the most, right? That's got to be the core of who you are, right? You don't have to put every single call in early, but you got to put in that core concept early if that's who you are. And that's when I think you can sprinkle things in the rest of camp where it's not, it's another install, but the concept isn't completely new to your guys. Because to me, anytime you teach your guys something, you have to spend a significant amount of time on it for them to understand it, to learn it, to rep it, right? But if you're adding a call from that bucket, okay, it doesn't seem as, mind-blowing to them, if that makes sense. So that's kind of our philosophy. I think it's worked out for us. And I really like that idea. When I saw that picture, I think he did a clinic and I saw that and I was like, man, that makes so much sense to me. And, it really makes you evaluate your defense. Like how many buckets do you have? Well, you got 30 buckets. That's way too many buckets, right? Like you call this, why do you call that? And word association, all those types of things. So we really take a deep look at that to make sure that the teaching is effective for our players because ultimately they're the ones who have to know it.
That hit a chord right there. I can see the clinic where he gave the bucket talk. And when you said that, that just took me right to kind of the philosophy that we're employing in our offense, right? It's the less plays, more ways, where when you think of a bucket, right, that idea gets introduced early. And then the concept, like you said, it changes, it adjusts. Maybe the way you do it's different, but it's like, no, we taught that progression, that mentality or whatever it is very early on. So then you can, as you are quote unquote changing it, you're getting repeated reps like on that same concept. And I think I stated it really well there. And I will mention too that I think one of the best things that we did, even as we were figuring out just, working with each other was we didn't necessarily like change, wholesale change installations, but we were constantly communicating, hey, when do these type of concepts go in? We met one time and you said it like when you prepare for a game, obviously somebody can get one over on you, but it's not like your kids are oblivious to what you're going against. So you're like, when we are referencing what's going in, like you said, it's not a schematic thing. It is more of like a preparation to where, both of us it's always fun to get one over on somebody and you put them balanced in or you put a certain pressure in. It's like, they're not prepared for it. But we both know the reality is you're not going to trick people. You're going to out execute them. It also made me think about, I was showing a cut up of one of our buckets, like you said today. It was all spring cut ups, and the amount of different looks that we got on this one concept. And I was just like in my own head, like, man, that is so invaluable, where I have, ungodly amount of these cuts, and you get different defenses from Mount St. Joe. But I'm like, I think we had more premium, difficult, challenging, unique looks on this one concept from those 15 practices that we did together. So I think that collaboration, like, you and I knew it was important early, and we got better and better and better by the end. I forget what period we did, but we just kind of looked at each other in the middle of like a half line. We were both working something, and we knew what each other was working. We're like, man, that was a really good period. You guys had good plays. We had good plays. Nobody was getting upset about the result. And it was about practice like 12. And I'm like, that's what a good team does when they practice, right? And I think that's a compliment to your foresight, like you said, of the overall vision. Both of these things, like the best thing for you and I is at the end of the day, we don't have to beat each other. You know what I mean? And that's always a nice thing to continue to remind yourself.
Let me just hit on that. You made a great point. And this is a Coach Oliver thing. It's our offense, our defense, right? So, and I would tell everybody this, like, you better be collaborating. You better be talking. I want to tell our defensive guys what our offense is doing, just like I'm doing that week of a game, right? And I want our offensive coaches to tell our offensive players what our defense is doing, just like they would a week of a game, right? And again, it's not we're trying to beat each other, but like that's how you communicate in meetings the game of a week. And to me, this always made sense with, like been places where you don't share installs. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like, let's talk about it, right? And I think the period you're talking about, I think the first 4 reps were, 1 high, then the second 4 reps were 2 high, right? And again, I think we both are in agreement on this, is like you want to stress your defense and you want to stress your offense, right? And you want to see how, it plays out, right? And because you want to know, you better know before Saturday what it's going to look like, because ultimately that, you need to be able to fix it. And again, that's what, talk about the evolution. To me, it's like you better have the answers when teams start doing things, because again, I always go back to that. Like that's a bad feeling when you don't have the answers and you're looking at your players and they're looking at you and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, and again, I think, not every staff's like that, I guess I would say, but I think you've got to have communication with your offense and defensive coordinator about, hey, can we see these plays today? Like they gave us a lot of trouble. We want to rep them. Hey, can we see these coverages today or these pressures? They gave us a lot of trouble, right? And again, it's our offense, our defense, and we better be helping each other, because ultimately at the end of the day, we want to win the game, right? And if we can help each other in practice, I think it was Cooper Kupp. He said, I want to see every coverage, every single route I run. And I was like, boom, like that. I want to see every pass concept versus every coverage we got. Like that to me makes sense, because you want to know how it's going to look. And that was a high level comment he made. And it really struck a chord with me, because I would assume you're the same way. Like you want to know, and you want your quarterback to know, and you want, your safeties, your corners, all those guys to understand, hey, this is what's going to happen, and be prepared. You don't want them to be surprised on Saturday.
That's true. And I remember, the one time, it's later in camp in spring ball where, obviously the head coach, but you came in as a defensive coordinator. I was like, hey, we talked to our offensive skill unit about, things that you're seeing. And I think even some of the offensive players asked some really nice questions, and just that conversation, right, man? We could just see the entire team blossoming and blooming from those conversations. I enjoyed hearing it, but I think that, we got smart kids, we got good kids at Georgetown, and they want to know, they want to learn. And just, that, like I've referenced him a couple of times, but our linebackers coach, Devin Gage, like he sits in our offensive, like we were brainstorming yesterday and he just sat in there, and he's done that ever since I've gotten there. And I'm just like, I love that. Like, I don't know many people. I don't know really anyone that's done that. And I'm like, that is the level of intrigue and just want to know that of guys I want to be around. And to your point, of our staff is like that. We've got a lot of guys who want to learn like that, and obviously makes our jobs more enjoyable to be around guys like that. One other question, and this was honestly Keith's idea, but I think it's a good one. We don't even use this term, but so you can kind of talk about that. But when you think of a walkthrough, right, we have a couple different iterations of that. And obviously we're starting to talk about different levels to it. I thought we had a couple, I'll let you use the term like what we actually call it, but I thought we had a couple really high level periods in the spring, especially as we figured out what we were trying to do to help each other. When you think about that program wide, obviously it could be a little bit defensive spun, but I think we have some really unique ways to apply it. Like when you think of that term and what we're trying to get done with this team, what comes to mind?
we use the word run through. I hate the word walk, right? We don't walk anywhere, but that's my, coach speak or whatever. Someone can make fun of me for that one. I'll never forget. I think it was at Kent State a long time ago. Let me take you back. We used to do walkthroughs way back in the day where your one defense went out there. They got like 6-8 reps. Then your twos got 6-8 reps and your threes, fours, right? And you're constantly turning around telling guys to be quiet. You're constantly turning around guys to, lock in. And you're constantly, now the second group's out there. They're making the same mistake as the first group. And I felt like there was this, and again, I don't blame them. You're standing there for 6 plays. Like it's, you got to capture these guys, their minds, right? If they're going to sit around, they're going to sit around, right? So their minds are they're wander. So it was at Kent State. I saw how they did it. And they basically had the ones take a rep, then the twos take a rep, then a threes take a rep, then a fours take a rep. So like that's kind of our mindset we have. We put the bags, we put, 5 bags on a 25-yard line on a hash, and everyone's toes are on the 40-yard line. And we call it the first group. We give them the call. We line up in a formation. They make their calls, and then they run through to the goal line. And then the twos come up. They get the same call. And again, to me, that was effective because you didn't have time to, you were never sitting there for a long period of time. So the fours got the 4th rep, right? And instead of waiting 15 reps before they got their rep, they were getting the 4th rep, right? And they got to see it done right in front of them. They got to hear the guys make the correct calls. They got to hear the coaching. And again, there's still guys that are going to mess things up, and that's part of why you do it. But to me, it's been major, very, very effective for us. And we do something even on a Friday where we'll have 2 different sets of bags set up. One on the 20 on the right hash, and then one on the 35 on the left hash. And that's kind of how we kind of work up the field and then back the field, up the field. And again, it's just when we do that on Friday, we put the signal around the sideline. We really want to simulate our guys getting the call from the sideline and turning around and seeing the formation. One thing, again, we stole from a coach when I coached at Birmingham Southern. He got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs, but he came back with how they do their walkthroughs. And instead of it being very random, like it's, we put it on an 8 box, right? And we draw in, really, hey, the formation, the motion, and a lot of it's our coaches that are the ones standing out there doing it, but we're giving them the looks we want to see that day. And so, it's not just, hey, motion over here. No, it's like, we're going to line up. We've thought through it. These are the 8 looks we want to see. These are the calls we want to see them against. And so that's one effective way we've done it. I know the other one that you're thinking of is, we got rained out in the spring one day and we were having a scrimmage on a Saturday, and we wanted to get some more reps at some red zone stuff. And I thought, again, you got to have a staff that is willing to work together, right? So, you huddled our offense, called the play, broke the, huddle, allowed the defense to get lined up, allowed the coaches to kind of communicate, ran a play. It was really literally this time we did kind of walk. It was probably a fast walk. We had no helmets on. There was no ball thrown. And to me, it was so effective for both of us because we were seeing, I think when your players see other players, the level of focus is tighter, right? And so when we did that one day, I think, again, we walked up the field and we're like, hey, man, that was really good. Like, I think we need to try to figure out how to do that again. And again, it was in a specialized situation. So there weren't a bunch of down the field routes. So, I think that was part of why it was so well, ran so well. But I think you got to find ways to be unique. And to me, I just hate our players ever standing around. So we want to try to roll the guys in fast, let the first group get a rep, let the second group get a rep, let the third group get a rep, let the fourth group get a rep, just so their minds are constantly working and they're not just over there bored. So those are the 2 or 3 kind of ways that we kind of do it. And I think they've been effective for us. And again, the main thing is like keeping them locked in. And hey, this is when you kids hear walk through, right? Take a break off. Now this is a run through. This is serious. We're locked in. Our toes are on the 40. We're behind the line. We're facing forward. We're getting the call. We're communicating at a high level. We turn the music off for that period so we can hear those things, can communicate those things. And we really want some high level coaching happening during those times as well.
Yeah, I thought that one was great because, on both sides there, coach it, you could just hear the echo of coaching going on every snap. And I don't know if we, necessarily repeated a call, but there was just even cross offensive defense where, if we needed to see something like, hey, can we see that again? Or, hey, do you want to see, what type of structure do you want to see? I think all those things were definitely vivid, and it was neat to see just how the evolution of, we took something that, I think we were getting through a flex period and we got lightninged out from 10 miles away, right? And it could have been a major negative, right? But I think we made it a positive. And again, you and I talked about this last night. When you coach at the small college level, you learn how to adapt. And I think the COVID spring, winter season taught us all those types of things of how to adapt, and you're practicing in pods. And I certainly got better as a coach and just as a creative thinker because you had to in that moment. I think we do a really good job with our run through stuff. Last one I have for you, and I think that I kind of hear your reflection on it a lot, but in this transition period for you, going from just being a coordinator to now head coach, but also still having those, the play calling duties, what's like the number one thing you've learned about yourself through this process? And I know it's a little bit of a grandiose question, but I hear you reflect on it quite a bit. And I think, it's just interesting because I get to be with you on your first go at it. And I'll tell you this, and this is not trying to earn brownie points. Like, I often have to remind myself that it is your first season as a head coach. Like, I promise you all the time, I just it seems to me just the way you operate and the way things flow, like, oh yeah, he's 0-0. Like, he's never coached a game as a head coach. So I think it's a compliment to you. But what's something that you just feel like you've learned about yourself in this transition?
Yeah, there's so much. And I would tell everybody, whenever you think you're ready to be a head coach or not, because there's so many things that come your way. Yeah, you've heard me say this, like, don't change, right? Like, I was fortunate enough to be on a great staff at a great program, in a great situation, at a great time to get promoted, right? This didn't happen on my own. Okay. So I have a great level of admiration for the staff that was here. Again, I tell people a lot about this is the best thing that ever happened to me was Coach Oliver didn't take another job and take a bunch of staff with him, right? He was really able to retain everybody. I had to hire an offensive coordinator and hire a really good one in you. And then we had a coach leave to go be an offensive coordinator. We were able to hire a former player who had left and got into coaching. So there wasn't a ton of staff turnover. But so, I was a peer a year ago, and now I'm so-called their boss, right? So like, do you just build this wall and like now you're a different human and you're fake? Like, no, you're yourself. Okay. And yeah, when tough conversations have to happen, you have to pull the Band-Aid off. And yeah, like, that's one of your best friends on the staff and you love playing golf with that guy, but like, you didn't like the way he did something. You got to have that conversation. And, those are tough because again, like you were a year ago up here, side by side with that guy. But to me, it was like, not going to be this guy. And you've heard me say, I'm not going to be the guy who just builds a wall and now is a different human because I'm a head coach. Like, I was out there in the 90-degree weather with us today doing the work on the field. Like, I'm small college. That's who I am. I'm very relationship built. Like, I want to be able to hang with you guys. I want to be able to do things fun on the weekend, play golf with you guys. Like, it not be any different. Like, not you. And also you guys have to feel like you got to act different when you're around me. And maybe it's unique because I was up here a year ago, but and I wasn't with you. This is our first year working together, but I also want the guys to have the ability to walk in my office anytime I ask a question. Or, like, as much as Devin sits in your meetings, you sit in our meetings, right? And again, like, why not come on in, man? Like, sit in and listen, ask questions. We'd love for that. So that to me was the biggest thing. And then again, like, with that is just, hey, look, no, sometimes you're going to have some tough conversations with guys that you really care about. Again, I think I can't remember who said this. You can run away from problems or you can run to problems. There's times when, man, I don't want to run at that problem, but I'm going to run at that problem. You have growing pains and those are good. Like, like they're part of the process. And I think we have a very respectable staff and guys understand the level of excellence and the expectations of our football program, whether I'm the head coach or not. And so there's amazing our respect level. We don't always have to agree. Again, I think that's a misnomer or whatever. Like, staffs don't have to agree, but they have to come to a common, they have to ultimately come together for the common good of the team, right? Like, but there has to be, again, to me, there's collaboration on our staff. I don't want every decision to be my decision. I want it to be our decision, just like it's our offense, our defense, right? Like, I think being around those coaches that I mentioned earlier, what I learned from them is you hire really, really smart people and surround yourself with them. hire people that are different than you, that are going to bring up different ideas, that are going to say different things, that have had different experiences, because that's only going to bring new ideas and have the ability to make your program, your offense, your defense better. So yeah, I mean, again, what I would say is like, I just have tried to be myself, not really change. I joked with the players when, our first team meeting, no one really wanted to talk to me anymore. They all kind of walked by me, and it was like, hey man, I'm still the same guy. Like, nothing's changed, but the time commitment is obviously different. Like, your mind goes from, not that you're not thinking about the whole team, but you're thinking about the defense 24/7, right? And your role in the football program. And now it's everything, right? So you're thinking about your offense, you're thinking about the defense, you're thinking about the special teams, you're thinking about recruiting, you're thinking about alumni, you're thinking about, how we're perceived on campus, community service, everything is now on your mind. So, what I've really had to figure out how to do is just manage my time better. But I don't ever want to get away from the game and coaching and the schematic part of it. So I always try to find time in my day to go back to what I love doing. Right. And that's the football side of things. So, yeah, I mean, there's some days I wish I was just the defensive coordinator, but, I'm at a great place. I'm blessed. No first-time head coach gets the Georgetown football job, and I understand that, and I carry that, with me every single day. And you've heard me say this, like, and you do it every day too. We walk by 3 national championships every time you walk in this building, and there's an expectation level, and you could be at a place that doesn't have expectations, or you could be at a place that has expectations, right? Like, where would you rather be? And I'm really happy I'm here and extremely grateful for Coach Oliver and Dr. Allen, our president, for putting me in this position. We got a great staff and excited to go out there and coach our guys this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo those sentiments to kind of close it out. I think you're doing a good job of balancing those two things. And I know there's certain days that are challenged, but like, just even, like you mentioned, of being yourself. I think I two guys that I really respected being able to work for, Tyler Hopperton, and you, just very relationship oriented. And like, what I like about you is, the couple of times, I think it was like practice 3, and you and I were getting together for the first time, and it just wasn't right. And you brought me in, and we were both ready to go. And then I know by the end of it, we walked out of there just with more respect and like understood each other better. But you did the head coaching thing. I mean, you didn't placate to me or anything like that. You said, this is how it's got to be. And I got, respect for you. Yes, sir. Like, that's what we're going to do. And even like before spring, we had a couple events at the complex, and we didn't do our job as a staff. And I know you didn't want to do that, but you came in, like, you gave the information to us, and I walked out of there. And I think every other coach did. Like, I respected what you did, because I know that conversation is not like pleasant. You're probably thinking about it all night and hard to sleep, but you delivered it with conviction. And then whatever we had the next day or the same day of, like, you're right back to, you're coaching and we're cutting it up afterwards. So
again, like, you have to have those conversations, and then you got to move on. I think that's what I've learned the most, like, is as bad as the conversation might have to be, okay, it's over. All right, now we're moving on to the next thing. I mean, you saying that kind of reminded me, it was like, I don't, like, after that conversation was over with our staff, and, again, we've had much better conversations, just those 3. I mean, 3 is probably pretty good, I would say, but it's, you forget that you even had it. Like, because, again, like, I'm going to go back, I'm going to, go into the offensive staff room and joke around and have fun, and same thing in the defensive staff room, because, again, I have respect for you guys, and it's, times we got to have talks, and there's times that we're, we got to get work done. And again, we have great staff. We know that. So it's been a good experience. And every day you're learning. I'm learning, man. Like, just like your first year coordinator, you're going to be better in a year from now. I better be better a week from now. Right. Like, and I believe that. So, and that's what drives me every single day.
And I say this to you, I've said it to you a couple of times, but I reflected, you gave us a nice little break before we get back into it that we just came off of. And I appreciate the opportunity, being able to bring me here. And when you go away for a minute, you just realize how lucky you are. And I think we started with it, where it's the people and the connections and all of those things that go into it. But I'm super excited to be, the offensive coordinator you get to work with in your first year, and just getting to watch you, grow as a head coach, but doing the defensive coordinator thing. So I'm just super, like, thankful that you brought me here, to be honest with you, man.
I'm excited you're here. I'm excited your family's here. You win with people. Don't get it twisted. You win with people, excellent people. And I don't care what your facilities look like, what kind of equipment you got, what kind of shoes you're wearing, whatever. Like, you win with people, and it's plain and simple. So
love it, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. This has been fun.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for listening to the Coach and Coordinator podcast. As you've noticed, we now have a series of podcasts on the Coach and Coordinator Network. We're really excited about this series approach and what each different host brings to us. Plus, we have some roundtables, which essentially are hostless podcasts, starting with Think Tank. We recorded that first Think Tank with Dan Gonzalez, Dub Maddox, and Josh Herring, and I'll tell you, it was so detailed and so good in what they put into it. I know you're going to enjoy that series as well as all the other series we have on the Coaching Coordinator Network. Be sure to follow all of our sponsors currently that Signature Championship rings, Modern Football Technology, and Titan GPS. Check out our 10% toolkit where we highlight all of our partners and what they have available to you, as well as some special offers. The link to that is in the show notes. Check out our enhanced show notes at coachandcoordinator.com. We'll be adding content that works better on video or as a download. And follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.